Good morning. Today is the 23rd of Sivan and the 12th of June. And I'm not in my regular location, so I hope everybody can hear me. And we're holding by the second reading of Parshat Shelach. And this is where the drama begins. So these scouts, they go to the land of Israel, the land of Canaan at the time. And there are many, many things to talk about what they saw and how they reported back. One of the things that we see right away is I want to turn your attention to Numbers 13, verse 33. Actually, we'll start from 32. It says, the men who had gone up with him, with Caleb, who had tried to convince the people that actually they could conquer the land and so on. So the other 10 men who had gone up with him said, we cannot go up against this people, for they are stronger than him, meaning stronger than God himself. That was what they were trying to argue. And that God cannot take them out of this land. And so therefore there's no way to conquer it. And they gave a report to the Israelites about the land that they had inspected, saying, the land we traveled through to inspect is a land that consumes its inhabitants. A very, very strong phrase that actually became maybe the most well-known phrase from this entire parsha. Eretz ochelet yoshveh. It consumes its inhabitants. And all the people we saw in it are men of great size. So that's how it's translated literally. I want to speak for a moment about what this means, that they are men of great size. In Hebrew, the word is anshe midot. Midot literally means of character, people that have character. It's also true that it's a person of great stature. Actually, if I would have translated it, I probably would have used of great stature. The stature doesn't only mean physical size. It also refers to the person's personality, to his character. And it's something that we talked about yesterday, that basically what they were saying was that to build a civilization, to inhabit this land, to civilize it, you have to be a person of great stature. You can't be a small person. In other words, you can't live in the land of Canaan and expect to be able to have a regular life without investing a tremendous amount of effort. And the effort is not just in the sense of physical labor, it's also in the sense of character, of being able to withstand the difficulties that this land demands. And that's a little bit about what we talked about yesterday, that the land of Canaan is considered to be a land that grows people that have tremendous character. And how do you build a person with a lot of character? Well, there have to be a lot of difficulties. There have to be a lot of things that cause the character to develop. But this idea that it's a place where it's hard to build a civilization is something that continues to run throughout the Bible. That there's always these tremendous difficulties. And in a certain sense, all the difficulties of the world sort of find their way into the land of Canaan, into the land of Israel. And I want to explain why that is. In Chassidus, we understand that the seven Canaanite nations that inhabited the land of Canaan, they represent the 7 character traits of the heart, from loving kindness all the way down to kingdom. And these are really what a person fights over during his lifetime. They're really what we need to refine. All of the Kabbalah of the Rizal focuses on the shattering of these character traits and the rebuilding. And so the Rizal has a very elaborate story that he tells, that what it says in the Torah, that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth was chaotic and void, is referring to a state in which these character traits were shattered. The earth refers to the body. The heavens refers to the soul. And so the earth was a void and it was chaotic, meaning that when a person starts out life, the body, the animal soul, everything that has to do with mundane reality is shattered, it's broken, it's chaotic. And it takes many, many years to rebuild. And in fact, according to the Rizal and according to the early understanding of Chassidut, the entire point of life is to build this character, is to regroup and reframe and refine these character traits that we have inside of us. So that's why, in general, we have that between the ages of 13 and something like 25, a person is usually broken during those years. It's very hard to find someone whose character is already developed and so on. And in fact, dealing with that brokenness is actually what creates character. So the land of Canaan with its 7 nations, they represent these 7 character traits that are broken. Canaan literally means submissive. And so they have this character, their trait is that they're willing to work. Whereas in other places, you might not even be able to really refine the character. But for that to happen, like we said, there has to be a lot of opposition. There has to be a lot of work that's done. So this whole idea of anshe midot, men of, like I said, of stature, which they usually translated as great size, means that if we're going to go into this land, we have to be prepared to work very, very hard on everything that that will make us into individuals that will create our civilization for it. But then they say something even more. They come and they say, we saw there not only the mortal giants we mentioned before, but also supernatural giants, fallen angels, or descendants of oak. And we looked like grasshoppers to them, to ourselves, and so did we seem to them. For we overheard them saying that there are ants in the vineyards that look like people. So what are they describing? They're describing that these giants, and what they mean really by giants is, again, men of stature. It could be that they were also physically big, but the idea is that these were people who had undergone many trials into, I don't know how to even start this. Sorry, just a second. Okay, I hope that'll stop. Somebody called in the middle, and I don't know how to. So they were walking in the vineyard, and they looked at these giants, and they said, "We feel like grasshoppers." But then they say, "We heard." This Rashi brings, and in the translation from the one that I usually use, he brings the Rashi in it. And he says, and we overheard them saying, it seems to us like there are ants that are like people. Meaning people that are so small, they're like ants. So you see that there's a discrepancy here. In their own eyes, they look like grasshoppers. But in the eyes of these giants, they seem to be like ants. Now, what's the difference between the two? What does it mean that in my own eyes, I look like a grasshopper? I look one thing, and in someone else's eyes, I look like an ant. So the answer is that these are what we call lower consciousness and higher consciousness. From the point of view of lower consciousness, when I look at someone who's greater than, let's say in this case, I'm looking at God, for instance, and saying, what does God look at me like? So from my point of view, I'm a grasshopper. Grasshopper is at least something that has some size. So the person normally, when we try to look at things from God's perspective, we say we take up some space. We actually are something. We're a grasshopper. It's not insignificant. It's very small compared to God, but still, I'm a grasshopper. I'm something. It brings to mind if you watched David Carradine with remember what it was, Kung Fu, right? So, the grasshopper. So that's a very very telling image. But from the point of view of God, really, meaning the point of view of these giants looking at them. So we're translating this to God looking at me. What do I really look like? So I really only look like an ant. I really don't take up any space. And this is what we call the difference between lower consciousness and higher consciousness. And lower consciousness we recognize God, but we see ourselves still as being very significant. And higher consciousness, which is the consciousness that Moses had, so the person looks like an ant. He's almost entirely insignificant. And so this is a beautiful allusion to these two levels of consciousness. In any case, they continued to tell them how terrible the land was and how they wouldn't be able to conquer it and so on. And the end of the story was that they tore their clothing and they mourned. And that was the night of Tisha B'Av, and the night that became a night of perpetual mourning in all the generations. And we'll pick up with this, God willing, tomorrow. Thanks very much for joining, in spite of the difficult circumstances here. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Rabbi. Have a good day.